Hey folks, just want to talk to you today about the new Redshift Light Manager that I've created for Cinema 4D. So once you install this, you'll see it under extensions. If you want to add it to your menu, you can go to Command Manager, Type Manager, and then you'll be able to drag and drop it from here anywhere you want in your user interface. And then if you do window customization style, a startup layout, you get it every time. So you can load it. And obviously there's no lights in this. This is a brand new blank scene. This isn't my usual scene. I have a bit of a preset, but just to show you. And then if I show you the updates and where we've kind of come from, so if I just drop a light in here first, I'll just drop an area light. And then I will, yeah. So I was going to show you this guy, but I'll get to that in a second. So if I choose a different color, so that one's a bit aggressive. So you can see here we had an add lights button. That's now kind of gone. So we've got a few more buttons down here. So the add lights button basically kind of now is up here. So we've got dedicated buttons to create lights. So you don't need like this kind of thing here, or like to click and roll that out. You can just instantly choose whatever light you want. And then we've also got updates for add target and add graph. So I'll come on to those in a minute. I've also got a new column here to show if you've got a material tag applied for the light graph. And then we've also got a new texture tab here. And then there's a ton of new fixes. And then just as a reminder, if you click this, this will show you your licensing info. So you can see a serial number and you can deactivate your license if you need and then activate it on another computer. You need to get 7 days offline with the plugin. So you should never kind of have any issues with that in case of any internet connectivity issues. And yeah, your license also covers you for all versions that I kind of create of this. It's a lifetime license rather than some kind of subscription. So you know that you're getting a great plugin and you don't have to kind of keep buying it over and over again. So that's one of the main things about this. So might think it maybe cost a little bit too much, but it's had a lot of work put into it, and it's for a lifetime. I know some other people have made these and kind of failed. But I put a lot of love into this, and it works in a very unique way with a lot of kind of additional features that I think you guys will love. So I'll kind of get into that. You can also see here that we've got a spread slider, whereas this one doesn't. And then also we have this tools menu that just did a refresh that was more for debugging. We now have a preferences menu under edit. So I'll come back to that in a minute as well. But if I just take this out of the way for a second. So this is it loaded for the first time. The window has a set of preferences, like I said, so you can now come into here and set this. And so you've got this is basically a nag warning that I will turn off because it shouldn't be on for the first start. And then you've got show spread angle column. And then these are your light AOV defaults. So if by default you have something different to you want something different to just having beauty all the time, you can set which passes you want in here and it will remember them for forever basically. And then if you want to uncheck this, it will revert it to the previous kind of build where you get a bit more real estate for just in your sliders. But you get the choice basically over the functionality, whether you want more functionality and smaller UI. And then obviously in the standard and advanced modes, you've got it there as an input field this way. So yeah, so just going through this for the first time. If I just dive straight into a scene, you can see I've got a bunch of lights here. So it supports all light types apart from RS, sun and sky. That's a bit of a unique beast because it's a whole system. It's not a light. So we won't be supporting that, but we do, however, support everything else. So you can see when I select things in the object manager that it actually selects them in our light manager. So it's bi-directional. So if I click something here, it selects it there. You can also see here that there's a material tag. So that's, if I click here, jump straight to it. That's the area light. So that's showing that we've got support for the material tag. And then just some kind of basic functionality. If you kind of click here and you shift click, you can select as many lights as you want. So this is handy if you'd say have a bunch of area lights you want to select and control at the same time. So I can just go ahead and click deselect all or select all as well. Like if I've got a bunch of these and I just want to get rid of that, you can just double click that to kind of get rid of that. And then also, if you wanted to disable a bunch of lights, if you click that, it will disable the selection. And then I've just added a new feature where if you double click this material tag, it will strip the material tag from that light. So that's a sneaky little kind of functionality there. But again, you can always control and Z to undo. So there's been a few more features, bug fixes. I'll get into those in a second. So you've got global preview options. So what do these do? So this affects every light in your scene. So every light has this preview kind of tab here, and then you have wireframe and illumination. So this will turn off wireframes for every light that's in the scene automatically. And then the illumination adjustment will go from 0 to 1 and then control all the lights in the scene. So you never get a blown out scene again. You can just change everything at the click of the slider, which is super, super handy. And then you can see there. And then also, if you did kind of get sick of lighting for whatever reason, you can do disable viewport, and that will automatically kind of hide all of these lights from viewport, and you can just undo it by clicking it again. It's contextual, so it will change. You might wonder why I didn't use the illumination kind of checkbox, and the reason why is physical sun doesn't let you do that. So this is a way around that. So you can still kind of get the same effect, which is cool. So I think that's all the kind of global overrides. You've got different modes here for comfort. If you kind of, I don't know, a bit visually impaired, or it's a bit kind of too much to look at. So then it makes it everything chunky. You might want to use that more when you're in different modes. So we've got standard mode as well. And then we've got advanced mode. So it kind of just spaces things out a little bit more for you. It's a bit cleaner. Whereas if you kind of want just everything that you can throw that at it. So what does standard mode have that compact mode doesn't have? Just resize this. Unfortunately, there is a limitation with the SDK where I can't resize this window, but you can resize it. And then the window will remember the tab that you last used and the window size. So if I kind of just back out of this now and come back, it will remember same size, same tab. So you've got all of the same information in here, and you've now got the spread in there. Again, if you change this preference, it's showing spread, that will disappear to give you a bit more room if it's not something that you usually mess about with, and just tend to leave your lights on one for the spread for the area lights. Just a note on that as well, it's intelligent and it will know that you are using spotlight, so it adds degrees here, so you can see that the where's my area light? My area light goes from 0 to 1, but this goes to 180 degrees. And then if I select all, and I changed a bunch of stuff here, so I can select sliders all together to change, and it will change all of the selection in one go. And then if I deselect, well, if I just select again, I can do reset to defaults. So obviously we've got different kind of ranges for different lights, like a spotlight, if I just deselect, can go all the way up to 100,000, whereas a physical sun can go to 2. So you can select them all together and kind of do that, but you're going to max out those very quickly. So it might be that you want to kind of just select similar light types. So you can drag these as well individually without selecting any lights, and it will just do it. So you can just go crazy on that, and same with this. But it might be that you have, say, a few area lights. Oops. And you want to kind of control all them together. So if I click here and then shift click, I can select them, and then it will pop up and it will tell me. In fact, that's still got material on it, so I'll come back to that because I want to talk about that later. So again, I can double click and it will remove that. So I can adjust these all at the same time, and I can adjust the spread all at the same time. And then if I add another spotlight as well, if I go in and then select both my spots, I can change both of those angles. If I then start adding the area lights to it, it will change the selection that I'm currently trying to kind of do for the group. So I've got 2 spots selected, so if I select that, it will change that. If I have the area lights, it will use those in tandem. And then if I reset everything to defaults, you will notice as well, if you have a material tag applied, all of these ranges basically change. So rather than them all being completely different for each light type, they essentially go from 0 to 1 and 0 to 8 for exposure. So the manager adjusts for that, and I'll show you that in a minute as well. So yeah, going back to standards. So in this, we kind of have a few more things. Basically, if you're looking at your area light and you have details, so there's the first 4 kind of contribution things here. So these are basically here. And then you've got AOV groups. And then we've got kind of color mode and all of that stuff. So the cool thing about this is now this is another kind of bug fix. So the color mode now, if you're in here and you set your light basically and you had color, it will disable your temperature. And so it does so in here. And then if I go to temperature, it then disables the color mode. And then if I go to color and temperature, it allows both of them. And then if I added a material tag, a light material tag on, you can see that then we get the tag to show that it exists, but it also disables this just as it would do on the actual light itself, so that you know that you're working with that tag. But yeah, I can remove that as well. So I can come in here and then again, I can just zero this out and hit enter, and it will set 0 for the contribution. So all my lights are hidden from the camera. That's cool. And I can add light AOVs to all my selection, or just whichever. I can create a new one. Just call this J. And so it's that easy to kind of create. Yeah, it's that easy to kind of create your AOVs. And then in advance, this is basically the kitchen sink, is what we call it in the UK. It's like everything. So you get all of the color mode, all of the intensity, exposure, shadow softness, shadow enable, matte shadow, refractions, GIs, trace amounts, and then all of the different contributions, caustics, and again, your AOV group. And so you can see here that the samples are grayed out. And so we've got something for that. The reason why that happens is because you've got automatic sampling enabled in your render settings. So if I go to sampling, you can see that's enabled. So if that's something that really kind of annoys you and you've got a default set of render settings or something, if you double click in this, it will tell you the reason why that's happening is exactly what I've just explained. So you can click OK and just leave it, or you can actually just disable it on the fly and it will do it for you, which is super cool. So that's another new feature. We did have a bug where if you had a ton of lights and you were kind of working down here somewhere, if you change the light or you change the value, the manager would scroll back to the top, and it was really annoying, especially if you want to dock this guy kind of somewhere like this and you've got limited space and you're working down here on a light, and then it would flick up there. So that is now fixed for definite. which is cool. And then these buttons as well, these two buttons used to resize to be crazy when you stretch this out. It now doesn't. All of the fields that should be fixed in terms of size has been then fixed, and you get more space for your sliders, exactly how it should be. And then now we've got texture support, which is a new feature that I've just created today. So obviously you've got kind of room for textures in here. It took a bit of thinking about how we implement this. Obviously, we've got the 3 modes here, and it's kind of like, well, advanced is already quite large. Do we really want to put it in there? I've got a widescreen monitor, and this is already quite large. So I kind of went with this option where we've still got the light name. We can see whether there's a material tag on it. We can see the intensity, exposure, color, basically all of the modes around where you would be working with an actual kind of texture. So you can see here, well, basically I can drag a texture into every light apart from, I think physical sun, and I think that might be it actually. But you'll also notice for a portal light that you don't drag a texture and you've got an environment. So this column caters to both of those things. So if I kind of come in here, I'm just going to drag in the randomest texture. So I can do that for a bunch of lights as well. So if I've got area lights, I can either click this and I get a pop-up, or I can click this and then I open the asset browser. I don't want that open, or then I can actually click this to clear the material or clear materials of all of the selected lights. You don't even have that in here natively. You have to kind of delete the path out. So if I just go ahead and show you and drop this in here, so I can drag and drop, you can see I've just applied that texture to all those lights in one go. And you just get the file name so it's nice and neat and trimmed, and I can just again clear that out and it clears it for all of them. So something to note about materials is we can also create a light graph for your selected materials. So if I just undo this for a second, then I've created some logic in here so that if you've got a texture, and you want to use a material tag, basically the material tag will wipe out the texture and vice versa. So what do I mean by that? There's no point having a texture here and confusing yourself that your light's using a texture as a gobo when you've got an actual light graph applied. So if I try and create a graph here, natively this obviously wouldn't be a thing, but the light manager is kind of holding your hand through your workflow. So it'll say, one of your lights already has a texture supplied. Do you want to use a light material instead? And you can say no and just back out. Or you can say yes, remove texture. And so then that will wipe these textures from the light manager. And then you can say, do you want to create a single material per light type or a separate one? So obviously you can create a single material, and you can see then that that's wiped all of this out and it's all disabled because the light is using the material. It's not using a texture or it's not using a color mode. And you can see then that that's created a light material for us, which is cool. So another thing to note, this is again, it's an intelligent thing. You've got different light material or light nodes. So you've got an IES light, sunlight, dome light, portal light, or physical light. Physical light applies to area light spotlights, infinite lights, and point lights. So the manager will automatically create that material for you and name it after the light type. So if I had a spotlight here, and you can see that selected, and then I create a new graph, you can see that it's then created it and named it a spotlight material. So again, it's doing everything for you in the background, taking care of you and naming your stuff for you, which is really cool. So again, if I then suddenly decide, well, hey, I want to put a texture on there, and maybe I changed it so that actually disabled it. I think it did. So if I just delete these out, you can drag your textures back in there, and then kind of work that way if you want. So Another thing with the add graphs thing is if I just clean this out again, if I just go back a couple of steps. So then I've got my texture tag, which is applied to those materials. My light shading tag added to these lights. So this is where you kind of get a bit confused with language sometimes when you're using textures and materials. So all of these three lights are using the same tag. So it might be that you start to change the value of this, and you maybe expect it that you're only changing it for one light, but you're actually going to change it for all of them. So the manager will warn you about this, and it will tell you this is applied to several lights. So you sure you want to do it. So you can click yes, or you can create unique materials, or you can back out. If you do yes, it will just adjust it at one time. If I go back, it will nag you again. You can say, don't remind me about this again until I reopen the project, and it will subdue the message until you reopen it, or if you revert it to saved. If you do cancel, it will undo the change. But yeah, so I've subdued it for the project, so I can go ahead and you can see all these are tied together. They're using the same material, and then it's just adjusting to go to the right one. You can see it's adjusting the intensity multiplier and then the exposure. And again, if I reset these to defaults, you can see that the values go to 1 and 0, which is defaults for having material light tags applied. So it's intelligent, and then sliders update to those values. Whereas if I remove those light tags, you can see the defaults then 100, so it changes automatically for you. The other thing is, if I just go back a step, it might be then that actually I want to create unique materials for all of these. So I can set this as a permanent preference to just not remind me ever again, which would be stored in the preferences. So if you know what you're doing and you're kind of happy to keep doing this over and over and you don't want to get nagged about it, you can click that. Or you can click create unique materials, and you can see that it's made a new material for every single light. And so you can just change those either as a selection and still kind of keep them controlled together, or you can go back and you can just control them individually and have unique values since you've got unique tags to apply to them. So I think that's some very important functionality, and it kind of takes care of it for you. And it warns you kind of where you're at with the material tags, because it's easy to get lost. And obviously, if you've not got any lights selected, it will warn you to select some lights. So another feature, we've got Organise Lights and our target. So if I had a bunch of lights in my scene, if I just kind of close this out a bit, I'm going to dock the manager down here. And so if I do a target, it will ask me, do you want to create a single target, or do I want to create individual targets? And it says it doesn't apply to point lights, i.e. physical, so not dome lights, because there's no point having targets applied to those, even though you can do. The manager won't let you on purpose, because it's just insensitive. So you can do single, and it will apply a tag to all of them, and it'll create a null, and it will name that RS light target, and it will create a shape, a null with an axis and a radius, so that you can see it in your viewport. And if I move this around and then deselect it, you can see it there. You can also just see that all of the lights, oops, that's the light, all of the lights are kind of controlled by this that I had selected, which is super cool. If I undo that for a second, delete these, I can also then go into this and say, well, I want to create multiple targets, and it will do that, and it will name the targets after the light type, and then it will drop the target underneath. So now I've got unique control of all my lights that I had selected. So then if I do Organise Lights, it will collect all of those lights, put them under a null named light, make it like a light yellow, and then bring all them in there in order. And then collect the targets with them as well and put that underneath. And the targets will be named after the lights, so you know exactly what spot, which is super cool. Got create light AOVs. So again, this just knows what your AOVs are that you've kind of created. By default, it will just apply to beauty. And then you've got direct multipass output or set as default. So this will set a preference in your preferences. So if I just do apply now, you can see then it automatically creates me a beauty pass and it adds those two selected AOVs to it. And I can do, it's contextual, so you can see that it knows that we've added this and can do update. So if I suddenly decide I want a couple more kind of passes and then I want to go into direct output and I apply, you can see they're all added and everything's set to direct. And I can come in here and change that at any point. And so you can see that it's just choosing the J1. And then if I delete these, it knows and it will go back to create. And it won't ever override your own AOVs. It will only do, it will only edit its own AOVs. And these are named kind of after those passes specifically. So yeah, that's the lights AOVs. What else do we have? So also, there's a couple more fail-safes that I built into this. So going back to light materials, if I just remove all this stuff, if I try to add, I don't know, this is just a standard material to my spotlight, the light manager will then tell me, hey, you're trying to add an invalid material to the light, and you can say, okay, and it will bug you about it, and it will give you a warning with a red icon here. So you can use that and double click to remove it, or you can just click removing the warning and it will get rid of it. Just in case you accidentally add anything that's not Redshift light graph material to your lights. So it's a warning, just kind of again holding your hand, which is super cool. And then going back to textures. So it might be that you want to kind of go in here and then for the portal light, you then try and add something like a light material into this. And again, it will tell you that you're trying to add the wrong type of shader. You need an environment shader. So if you click OK, and it will remove it. Or I can drag my own environment shader in there, or I can clear that out. Again, if I go back and try and add like a light material, it will tell you, warn you. I mean, you can create your a shader, an environment shader for you and add that automatically, which is super cool. So yeah, you've now got all of these textures and environments kind of thrown in now. And what's next on the list? So if you just jump into another save file real quick, I can just show you again the material support. So if I just go in here and then start this IPR, so all of these lights, they all have the same area light material applied to them with the same ramp. And so you can see in here, just drag this up a little bit. If I select all of these guys and I go into compact mode, again, it's going to tell me about the warning because I've just opened this scene for the first time, so I don't want to be reminded about that. I'm just going to just click yes for the time being. So I can edit all of those with the same material at the same time. And I can do that whether they're all selected or whether I'm just selecting one because they've all got the tag on there. So it might be that I come in here and set that to 5 and I just say yes, and we can see that's affecting the intensity. And so if I come back in here and then say create unique materials, in fact, I'm just going to disable these lights and enable these lights because we can see that these have all got unique materials with the ramps on there. So we can see that if I just adjust these now, it's warning me because that's a shared material across the other lights if I just take that off there. So I can play with these and slide these up and down individually all day long. Or shift select them and work with them together. And then I can set the spread as well, so you can see that. So you can see how powerful this kind of is when you start working with it and working with light materials and all of the rest of it. There's also another small bug before where if you try to type in here, it would kind of kick you out after every letter. It doesn't do that anymore. So I can name all these lights, like it's name that J, and kind of, I don't know, red, whatever. And then in here, something, if I change my light type up here, and I change this area light to a spotlight, you can see the icon changes the light, but the light's still called an area light. But if I change it in the manager, again, it will kind of take care of that for you, so it will rename it to a spotlight. If I do this for my light that I renamed, you can see that it keeps that name, but it renames it for you. But that's just the last kind of little bit of functionality of it, kind of holding it out again while you're working. I think that's about it. I hope you guys love this as much as me. Kind of, again, put a lot of work into this. Hoping that you guys enjoy working with it. If you've got any kind of feature requests or ideas, I'd love to hear them. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know. Cheers.